no real news here, was there?
No, I don't think so. It's a pure coincidence that on the biggest political primary day of the year, when all Americans are kind of fixated on politics, that the president happens to have a news conference.
Are you spend too much time in Washington, John? You're obviously cynical about our political processes.
No, this was a great opportunity to see what the rest of the election year is going to look like, right? This was kind of similar to the State of the Union message where the president kind of marched through his talking points for the campaign trail. So any Republican candidate out there who's thinking, okay, how do I sort of prepare my fighting documents? This was a good press conference.
Right, he gave a little preface. He kind of gave his opening speech. You know, a little pro-veteran.
Talked about energy.
Cut interest rates for the average American.
Veterans, exactly right. About refinancing for homes and all of the above energy policy. You know, that was language that we also heard in the State of the Union message. So there was nothing new here, but it was just, it's always interesting to hear the President of the United States talk, and it was very, very explicit on issues and very also condemning of some of the language on the campaign trail now about Iran, particularly those who see going...
Now that President Obama is president, he knows what it's like to be commander-in-chief. Hang on one second. Let's hear what he had to say about Iran, John.
We have a window of opportunity where this can still be resolved diplomatically. That's not just my view. That's the view of our top intelligence officials. It's the view of top Israeli intelligence officials. And as a consequence, we are going to continue to apply the pressure even as we provide a door for the Iranian regime to walk through where they could rejoin the community of nations by giving assurances to the international community that they're meeting their obligations and they are not pursuing a nuclear weapon.
John, just from a somewhat an outsider's point of view, his language vis-a-vis Israel and Iran really has changed over the last couple of weeks, hasn't it?
Well, you could probably say it's toughened up a little bit. Benjamin Netanyahu's in town. He's talking on Capitol Hill today. He spoke with the president yesterday. President Obama doesn't want to appear to a domestic constituency of the United States as if he has taken any of these options off the table. He's been very explicit about saying, look, you know, if military action is the last possible hope, then we'll consider that. At the same time, he's kind of walking a careful line here. He wants to make sure that Netanyahu feels that the U.S. is being aggressive on negotiations so that Netanyahu doesn't have to face a domestic constituency back in Israel that says, well, what's going to happen? Are we going to end up at the end of the day with nukes up in Iran threatening Israel? So the president feels that, and he was explicit about this, that, look, you know, we have sanctions ongoing. They're getting tighter on Iran, and they are. You know, you still have China signing an oil agreement with.
You know, he doesn't have Russia and China on board yet with regards to the Iran policy.
But a lot more are on board now, and you're beginning to feel Iran is feeling these strictures. You know, the question is whether or not the strictures themselves will cause Iran in one way or another to lash out. So he's kind of navigating this careful diplomatic line, and was very explicit. Getting back to politics. Very explicit about some of his Republican candidates being kind of
more hardline.
As he said, casual about going to war.
But I mean, that's what you'd expect. But the reality is that President Obama, as opposed to say his predecessor George Bush, does have a more dovish reputation when it comes to matters involving Israel, and just in terms of overall his diplomatic posture. I mean, is that not true?
You could say that. I think that Obama would probably respond to that characterization as saying realistic. We know the consequences of war. We just have experienced two of them. We had Zbigniew Brzezinski in the other day to speak, and we did a video interview with him, National Security Advisor for President Carter, saying, look, you know, people are not thinking. A war with Iran has huge implications for their border with Afghanistan, disrupting our fight there. Disrupting Iraq and our concerns there, disrupting Syria.
Right.
So there's a lot of implications.
The Carter administration in particular had a very, very unhappy time with Iran in particular.
True.
But let's turn to the political element on Iran. And he talked about gas prices also during the press conference. And it's clear, again, putting it in the context of a re-election campaign, that he's very sensitive to the price at the pump and to Americans perceiving that his policy is in some way responsible for high gas prices.
Yeah, that's right. Well, as Iran rattles the saber, prices go up, right? Which is great for the Iranian revenue, clerk who's kind of booking the orders, right? And they can sell their oil for more. So he doesn't want to get caught in this vicious circle of rattling sabers, higher oil prices, higher price at the pump in an election year. And he was quite explicit about this. He said, look, our energy policy, and again, this was very reflective of what he said in the State of the Union, is to try to drive energy prices down while navigating seamlessly to clean energy. But just back on Iran for a second. I think that the statement that he made and has articulated before, that we have Israel's back, is, I think, it plays both ways. One is we're protective of Israel's interests, but we're a player with Israel, so Israel, we're a player. Make sure that we're making decisions in tandem, that this doesn't somehow go off the rails, and Israel feels that it must attack Iran because the U.S. is disengaged.
Right. Of all the issues that he talked about earlier today, many of which, whether it's the Sandra Fluke and the contraception debates, or it's the gas prices, or it's Iran, or it's interest rates, these all have implications for the election campaign.
Yes.
But the one that he can control least is probably what? Iran or gas prices or both?
Well, Iran and gas prices are kind of in tandem, aren't they? I thought you were going to ask something else. What was the most important thing that he talked about? I would say the most interesting thing about the press conference was what he didn't talk about, which was
jobs and all that stuff, right?
Yes,
exactly.
I mean, you just articulated what he walked through, right? So housing prices and refinancing and gas and Iran and Israel and Syria and all these things. Where was the
jobs?
The deep dive on jobs and the economy. So at the beginning, he talks about a recovery that is underway that we won't want to destabilize. And so other things were mentioned in that context. We don't want higher oil prices because that could destabilize the economy. But so what does this reflect? This might reflect confidence on the part of the White House that the economy is becoming less of a political issue, which plays good for the Democrats, tougher for the Republicans.